Hi friends, before we start this episode, I just wanted to let you know that here in From Someone Who Gets It, we have raw, vulnerable conversations, and sometimes those conversations can trigger others. I want to let you know that in this season, we touch on suicide, infertility, PTSD, and everything in between. So if those are some subjects that are triggering to you, I just want to let you know that you're heard and you're seen and you're not alone. This podcast is for you, and I hope you join us. Hi everyone, welcome to From Someone Who Gets It, a podcast about life, mental health, and everything in between. I'm your host, Marcela, and this season I'll be sitting down with some of my favorite people having raw, vulnerable conversations about goals, dreams, life, and mental health. Every Monday you can find our episodes on the Cultura Talks channel, and I hope you join in. Hi friends, today we're sitting down with Carlos Escanilla. He is a therapist by day, musician by night. We talk about his career in music, mental health, and we talk about relationships and what you can do to better yours. I hope you join this episode of From Someone Who Gets It. Thank you for being here today.
Of course. Thanks for reaching back out to me.
I was so excited when Robbie told me you reached out because I was looking for a therapist to be on. But what made me even more excited was not only that you're a therapist, but that you're a creative.
Oh yeah, local musician for 17 years.
I love your tagline: therapist by day, musician by night.
Yeah.
I kind of want to know a little bit about you, your background, how you got into music, but also how that evolved you getting into the mental health world.
Yes.
It's a loaded question, but
no, it's everyone has a story, right?
Right.
And then in this world we live in, you know, you want to share that story, and it's interesting because I have a friend also who's like, you know, kind of public figure, and I always used to make fun of him. I'm like, dude, I've heard your story so many times on podcasts and different. He's like, that's what you have to do, you know? So yeah. Well, so I started playing music when I was 13, completely by ear. Started with guitar. Shortly after, about a year later, I started matching the vocals. I always sang. I always like hummed in the backseat of the car, and you know, my parents were always like, you have a good voice. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's good. And eventually I was, you know, the entertainment act at get-togethers and, you know, bring out the guitar.
There's always the token one.
And just playing all these songs that people love to sing along to. And then life took its course. I went to college. I graduated. I got married. You know, I had 2 kids. Fast forward to probably about like 27 years old, I decided that I wanted to have a career change and go get my master's in mental health counseling so I can be a licensed mental health counselor. So,
did something happen that,
Yeah, definitely. I was always into psychology, but was always intimidated because everybody said you're just not going to make any money. Like you're not going to make a living being a psychologist. Like psychologists starve is what I was told. And I was like, that's strange. I was like, okay, well, so I listened, you know, and whatever I was doing, I was in sales and I wasn't bad at it, but I wasn't happy.
Right.
And then I shifted from sales and I went to work as an area manager for a nonprofit organization called Drug Free Youth in Town.
Okay.
And I think it's still around. And I got to kind of connect with teenagers, and it started there. I was like, I could do more, and I'd like to help them in a different way. And I've always liked psychology, so let me go back and get my master's degree.
Okay.
And I had to give up work. So I said, okay, what do I do now? So I started a band. And that's the way I supported myself through my master's degree and through my clinical work and through everything. Wow. So I would go do the clinical work. I would go take the exams. I would go to class. And then at night, I would play gigs all over Miami.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's because I had 2 children to feed.
Right.
And yeah, Matthew had just been born. Michael was about 2 years old at the time, something like that. And yeah, and then by the time I actually got to playing music, I was 28. So my younger son had just been born. And yeah, I graduated. I started working, but the gigs never stopped. I played different festivals and events, and the band was doing well. And
Wow.
and I just never stopped. And here I am. I mean, my first gig was in April 22nd, 2007 in Bugambillas, at Boogies.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you haven't stopped since?
I haven't stopped since. I played there 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of love that, and how you still you followed your passion in two different ways.
Yeah, because I definitely fell in love with psychology, and definitely fell in love with different things that you can do with psychology, because I do a lot of public speaking events too.
Okay.
And about effective communication and conflict resolution, things like that. And then, of course, my private practice, and then playing music. And now I'm that band slowed down. We're still together. We play the second Friday of the month at Lincoln's Beard for the
cool.
last 8 years. And now I have another band, which is this big, I was talking about it downstairs, this big band, 8-piece trumpet, trombone, saxophone, backup singer. Yeah, big band thing. So it's going really well. It's going, yeah, we're very happy.
Well, I love that. I love, again, I'm someone who have always put my passion before. I started singing at a young age. I started singing at 8 years old. And then I found the world of theater.
Oh, wow.
And I fell in love with music theater. And I was also told, like, you're going to be an actor. Like, you're not going to make any money. And I'm like, I know that, but I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And even now, like, I'm 33 years old and I'm still doing it, and I'm still reaching for that, that dream and that goal. And I've never stopped. But mental health has played a role in, like, thinking, okay, not that I can't reach that goal, but it's taking me a lot harder because my mental health has kind of taken a toll. As a creative, how do you balance your mental health while helping others with their mental health? How does that work for you?
So I always was taught and believe that every great therapist has a great therapist.
Yep.
And, there's so much going on. And since the pandemic, mental health has gotten placed definitely in a different light.
Yeah.
And the stigma has definitely diminished. And we got really, really busy. And I just can't imagine, with how busy we are, a therapist not processing, not going to someone. My mentor is my therapist, so I go see him every 2 weeks. I process. We spend 2 hours together. 1 hour is discussing the cases that I've been seeing, and kind of challenges that I've been facing.
Right.
Whether it's them, saying something that affects or could possibly affect my reaction. And I always have to make sure that I'm providing the best clinical ability possible and not making it about me. But we are human.
Right.
So somebody could say something, I'd be like, I've been through that, but it's not about me right now. All right. So, and then the next hour is like my own, like, processing that, the therapy and my own little therapy session. So it's very, there's that. And then, of course, music is a tremendous outlet.
Right.
Singing, especially being a singer, it's literally breath work. And when I perform for 3 hours.
It's so, oh, wow. It's so weird because I literally just had an aha moment when you said that. Because when I'm super anxious, I find myself singing a lot and not realizing, like, oh, the breath work that I'm doing there is what's actually calming me down. So you just blew my mind right now with you saying that. Because my fiance tells me all the time, he's like, do breath work. And there's certain breath works that don't work for me. And I think that it does, everyone is different. And there's some breath work that works for everyone and there's not. And I'm constantly finding myself singing when I'm super, super anxious. And now it all makes sense to me. So thank you.
It's very good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned, because you mentioned theater, I learned how to project my voice. So I don't know if you've seen footage of me singing or not,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely able to project my voice, and I'm very loud, and I learned through theater. Theater taught me how. I was a theater kid in high school, and
Oh, I love that.
yeah, and that's, so like, how do you do that? How do you sing from here and not from the throat? And I'm like, well, I just theater. I have theater thing for that. So my point is that if you were to sing loud and project your voice, it's even more of a meditation. It's even more of you feel just amazing after. So
No, I do. I'm like in my car, like projecting the hell out of my voice. And after I've gone full throttle, I'm like,
do you have a favorite song to sing?
yes, She Used to Be Mine from Waitress is one of my favorite ones. This month has been Defying Gravity because Wicked comes out this month, which I can't even tell you how excited I am. But those are my that's lately. But She Used to Be Mine is like a big one that I just feel like it hits all the emotions. It hits my acting emotions too. I'm like, I pretend I'm on stage, and then after I'm like, oh, okay, that felt good. It's like a good cry for me.
Good.
Yeah,
yes,
that's what
as
it feels
should
like.
be. As it should be. Yes, absolutely.
I want to talk from someone who's been in therapy since she was 17. And I asked for it. I remember clear as day, like asking like, hey, I think I should talk to someone. What I'm feeling is not normal. When someone is thinking about getting help and going to therapy, I know that can be intimidating, and I know that can feel, some people feel like, oh, I feel weak asking for help and going to seek help. How do you think we should approach that, and what advice do you have for even the younger generation that's feeling like, hey, I need someone to talk to? How do I tell my parents, or how do I approach this?
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's a different experience for different age groups. And that's the most fascinating part, right? I mean, if we gather, for example, one demographic, men 35 and over, they will think a million times before reaching out.
Yep.
Right? Teenagers, it's not that they don't want to reach out, it's that they don't realize, like, they don't have that instinct that you had at 17. They don't realize, am I not supposed to be feeling this way? Oh, right. Oh, so maybe I do need, so a lot of times it's not that they don't reach out for help, they don't realize they need it. But to answer your question directly, thankfully, what's going on socially is already helping, because we're normalizing it. Right. We're going from, oh my God, you're in to now it's like, oh, this is my therapist. And I'm like confidentiality. Hello. I'm like, what?
It is true.
I'll be performing and that's my therapist. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, no. But that's not. You would do that. That's me. You would do that.
I did a show and my therapist came to see my psychiatrist, actually, not even my therapist, my psychiatrist. And I was like, my psychiatrist, everyone. Yeah. And everyone's like, what the hell?
That's the world we're living in now.
She keeps me happy, dude. I'm going to give her a shout out whenever I see her.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time, I go, okay, well, listen, if I'm the one that can't acknowledge you socially. And so if I walk by you and I don't say hi, don't take it a certain way. Yeah. I am not allowed to. Right. Because that's a breach of confidentiality. But if you approach me, then okay, that's it. You're doing this.
You're doing it.
Yeah. So we live in this, this world now where we've normalized it to the point where that social component is already doing the work for us. So innately kind of already making it easier for people to reach out. But I would say that just like anything else, we always want to be better. And the stronger and the more aware we are with our mental health is all the things that come out of that organically are going to make you stronger and better. So it's no longer of it makes me weak. Is that now it's about regardless of where you're at, whether you're going through, major depression or an adjustment or anything, we can always benefit from feeling better.
Right.
And sometimes it's just a matter of the approach too, because some people are just the wording. I feel like I need to see a therapist. Like that, people hesitate already. Where they could just say, I'm not feeling right, and I think I should talk to someone.
Right.
Somehow, even though it's essentially the same thing, somehow it's a little bit more welcoming or inviting for people who are hesitant.
Yeah.
But yeah, the different age groups is fascinating to me, and different demographics,
And I think it's because, as a millennial, I see my cousins who are all Gen Z, and they're so open with their feelings and they're so ready to like talk about it. When with my age group and growing up, it wasn't something that we heard. It wasn't something that we heard anyone talking about, especially growing up in a, Cuban household. Definitely not something we talked about. So when it came to figuring out, and I spoke about this in the last episode that just aired, it was like growing up, I didn't even know there was something wrong with me until I was like, okay, I'm really sad. I'm not happy. Like, and I see people around me who are happy all the time. Like, there must be something off with me that I need to talk to someone. But that wasn't the norm in my group. And I remember when people started finding out that I went to therapy, I remember I told someone like, oh yeah, I'm going to therapy. They're like, don't say that out loud. Like what? Like if I was saying something crazy and it was like, wait, but I know that the way that I'm feeling and the things that are going on in my brain are not okay. But even going to therapy, I still didn't talk about it just there, which I think that's also an issue. And I want to like talk about that.
Sure.
Of like, yeah, we can go to therapy and we can like talk for an hour, but then like if we keep it all inside after that, like how does that help? What is your, I don't want to say advice, but like what's your like strategy on that? Or how would you feel like, yeah, we go to therapy, but then if we don't do the work outside, are we doing anything?
So that is a fascinating question.
Yeah.
It really is. And I'll explain. It's, so I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm very, very, I'm good at it, but I'm always hesitant about talking about myself too much. Cause we're the, you're to be seen, not heard generation.
Yep.
So everything like social media related is like, it was quite an adjustment. The whole like selfie concept was like the whole like, like, oh, we do that? Okay. I could hear my mom saying, too much attention to yourself. So my strategy is, it's, where do I begin? Because I always laugh because my mom's always been very concerned about me being a therapist and having so many tattoos. I'm a very heavily tattooed person. And I always say, with each tattoo I get, I just get more well-known in the community. It helps me. It doesn't hurt me.
Yeah.
And I say it to her, maybe to kind of frustrate her a little bit, I admit, which is one of the issues I'm working on with my therapist. Yeah, I think therapists have been taking a a good path into being a little bit more relatable instead of I'm here and you're there. And I think that helps when I first see somebody and they walk into my office and I'm just being me, and I'll talk about, oh man, I had a hard time parking this morning, or I'll just humanize myself a little bit. I do there. It's a really fine line, but I do when it's pertinent, I will disclose a little something about myself to make me human. Nothing deep, obviously, because that would take away from their session. But something that, this guy's an everyday dude.
It just makes you feel safe.
Absolutely. And in my office, I have like vinyl records, and that's always a conversation piece. And then I'll tell them, I will say, listen, just before we go any further, I go, the first session is always, I call it the movie trailer of therapy. All right.
It's true.
You're going to tell me a bunch of things, and I'm going to gather a bunch of things, and then I'm going to kind of go over a quick trailer as to maybe some things I picked up on. Obviously, I'll pick up on other things throughout the sessions, but for now, like, I picked up on this, and we'll talk about that, and this is probably coming from there, and we need to process that. And you mentioned this, and I think maybe that's something that needs to be discussed and all that. And I'll just remind them what confidentiality is and how it works. And then I'll tell them, I've been doing this for 15 years. Trust me when I tell you that there's not much I have not heard.
Yeah.
I will take it a step further. Sometimes you're going to say something and I'm not going to react, and I'm going to have to consciously make an effort to react.
Yeah.
Because I know it's a big deal to you, but it's something I've heard before. Especially like, when couples come in and it's time to talk about sex, and I'm like, guys, I've heard like a lot of dark, really crazy. Like, this is not, I mean, I can, if you want, I could do that if you want, but this is like, we're fine. And so I'll tell them, look, there's not much I haven't heard. And it's true. And it's true. I mean, you go to like a happy hour full of therapists, the humor gets really interesting.
Oh, that I would love to be a fly on the wall.
It gets
to be a fly on the wall.
So I tell them that. And then of course I give the old fashioned, remember, all you're doing by coming here is me trying to bring a horse to water, but I can't make you drink. And that really a lot of times turns into the therapy. Like, okay, did you try this week? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about what stopped you. Okay. Okay, you were catastrophizing again. Okay, got it. All right. Did you play out the worst case scenario? No, you didn't. Okay, got it. And it just, and eventually, guess what? I set that boundary and everything was okay. And I'm like, yeah. It's usually, and sometimes it's not okay. And when it's not okay, it means you did a good job.
Yeah.
Because not everybody's happy when you set a boundary with them.
I've realized that the older I've gotten, the more, it's not like I set like dumb boundaries, or it's just I've set a boundary of like energy. And it's like, no, it's not that you're a bad person or a good person. It's just like at this time of my life, it takes a lot for my brain to like sometimes just like survive. And sometimes your energy just doesn't feed into what I need, and it doesn't make you a bad person, and it doesn't make me a bad person because I'm setting all these boundaries for myself. It's just like the older I get, the more I realize that, and the smaller my circle has become.
That's what people are most fearful of when they set boundaries, right? Boundary setting is, I do a lot of workshops on boundary setting, and it's interesting because I always tell people, when you set a boundary, you have to lead with empathy and compassion, because the boundary exists. The need for the boundary exists because of you. You enabled the behavior. You enabled them to overstep that. You made it okay. So when you cut off the supply on something, people are going to be pissed.
Yeah.
And you have to acknowledge, oh, it's not that they're a bad person. People don't wake up in the morning saying, I'm gonna overstep this person's boundaries. That's my goal for the day.
Yeah.
Like that, you've set that up. So you have to lead with empathy and compassion. It's a craft. Setting a boundary is an art form. Like being able to tell somebody, hey, listen, I have been guilty of allowing this. I have been guilty. You have a tendency to say certain things to me that hurts my feelings, and I've never said anything about it. And I apologize that I've never said anything about it, but I'm going to say something about it now.
Yeah.
And I don't appreciate it. It's bad for me or whatever the situation may be, you know, and I'm going to ask that moving forward that you try to refrain from making comments like that or, you know, because I don't feel good about it.
Right.
And I think that can lead to a good, healthy, constructive conversation.
Yeah.
You know, what do most people do? They leave the therapy space with like this energy and they get to the parking lot and they call that person and I'm going to set a boundary and you're no longer going to treat me this way.
And that's not how at all.
And then they come the next week. They're like, it didn't work. I'm like, tell me how it went. And I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, I don't even want to honor your boundary after you talk.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, yeah. So, but yeah. Interesting.
You mentioned couples and I read that you have a lot of couple like sessions. How do you, when it comes to couples and setting boundaries, how do you approach that? I feel like everybody's different, you know. For example, my fiance and I feel like are very good at respecting our boundaries until we get defensive about each other's boundaries. And I feel like that's been something that, and I think it all depends on how stressed we are, because I feel like if you're super stressed and not feeling it, you are a little more defensive than usual and all that stuff. How do you approach respecting someone's boundary and not taking that personal? And someone giving you a boundary and feeling like, oh, it's an attack on me. And it's like, it's not, it's for them. How do you approach that?
Wow. You have really good questions.
Wait, did you hear that,
yeah,
Junior?
These are really good. These are really good questions. Because they're complicated to answer because it's a case by case basis. I mean, in Miami, and I have nothing to compare it to. I've never practiced anywhere else, and I grew up in Miami. So in Miami, we have very interesting ways of functioning in marriage. And some of the things work. A lot of things that we grew up observing maybe don't work as well. Right. I'm trying to, be careful with what I say. So it's interesting because you pick up on a lot of things. I've done a lot of work with men and men's mental health and teenagers. When I was working with teenagers, a lot of the male teenagers. So, you start picking up on a few things. You start seeing some constants and you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. So there's... one of my strengths in my practice is I'm very good at gentle confrontation.
Okay.
All right. So I'm not afraid to say certain things where, not to knock anybody or knock any of my colleagues out there, but some therapists might hold back.
Right.
There's some moments where a therapist will hold back. I'll go right in. And I'll just, I'll just say, does this happen frequently that you tell her how she's feeling? I'm just wondering, because I think it's better for you to wait to hear how she's feeling instead of telling her, and the other way around too. The other way around, where he's because he's always like that. I'm like, always? Is he always really always? Because that's a lot, and you're still married. That's a lot to,
Right.
And they're like, oh, once they get to know me, they're like, okay, I get it. I start always I look at a couple and I go, okay, when the day you get married and you're there and you're partying with everybody and all the older folks who've been married for a while say that marriage is all about what? And what's the key word that you hear? Keywords that you hear? Communication. There's another C there.
Connection.
Oh, that's a good one. Compromise. Okay. So I'll say, and I'll say, well, and I'll tell them, and I'll say, so we're gonna grab that concept, all right, and we're gonna just kind of bundle it up, and we're just gonna set it aside, all right, because compromise insinuates that for the rest of your life you're gonna be leaving at least half of what you really want out of your life and the way you want to live it on the table in order to make something work.
Yep.
And that is the fastest track to resentment. And you're going to end up resenting your significant other. You know, so in this hypothetical, at this point, they've heard me say, I repeat a lot of things, and you know, I have my shtick, things that work. I'll say, so when you're wondering why he treats the cashier at Publix better than he treats you, it's because of resentment, right? So we always have to, you know, so compromise. So I start there. I go, compromise. You can compromise on like the food you're gonna eat, the movie you're gonna watch, like, you know, who you're gonna have over for dinner. Like I don't feel like having people over, but I do. Okay, you know, things like that. But I don't understand why we haven't pushed the concept of collaboration.
Ooh.
Right.
Replace that C.
Yeah. So first of all, if you're not okay with collaborating, if you're gonna get, if you know, and I'm sorry that this took into a marriage,
I
a marriage
love
thing,
this.
you know,
I love
but
this.
in any relationship, marriage or not, if you go in there expecting a person to compromise and then you think you have to compromise, it's going to lead to resentment. When the whole point is you're choosing somebody to be a witness to your life. So what does that mean? It means that the number one thing we don't want is a codependent relationship.
Right.
So we want an interdependent relationship, right? We want a relationship where each individual is living their life. They're experiencing life the way they want to live it, and the significant other takes it as their responsibility to collaborate to that. How can I collaborate to your life? When I wake up in the morning, how do I make sure that I'm doing whatever I can to make sure you are living your life the way you want to live it? And then we set parameters around that, right? Obviously,
Right.
you know, if somebody's like, well, okay, if you want to collaborate, I just want to sleep with everybody then, you know, okay, obviously there's parameters there.
Right.
Like, okay, no, we're not going to, you know, but what I'm saying is these little things, like I always say, life is about having the seatbelt sign on for a part of the flight, but being able to roam freely among the cabin for most of the flight.
Ooh.
And as the significant other, making sure that your significant other is doing that.
Yeah.
Are you doing that? Are you living your life the way you want to live it? And if you're not, how can I support that? So compromise on these little things, but the concept of collaboration is so much more important. And so I always start there with them. I go, so you guys have to go home and not talk about it. You each have to sleep on this, and you have to decide whether you want to be in a marriage of collaboration, because it's not for everyone. You might have been raised in a household where one person
made all the
decisions, got, you know, this is what we're doing and this is what you're wearing and this is where we're going, and the other person's like, okay. And some people like living like that, and
Right.
to each their own.
Right.
And but there's the collaborative concept is one that really we need to start owning, because the divorce rate is way too high for us to keep doing whatever it is we've been doing.
Eddie and I used to, when we started dating, we used to always say, we want to make sure that we're constantly adding in each other's lives and not taking away.
Right.
Because like once it becomes that you're not adding anything, not like in a bad way, but it's like it becomes hard, and life is hard already. But it's like when you collab with someone and there's a collaboration and there's an understanding and there's a kind of like a goal between the both of you. Yeah. Yes, life gets hard, but when you're collaborating with someone, it's a little easier than when you're making sacrifices and you're like, oh, let me not say this, or let me not do that, or he doesn't like this, so let me not even bring it. No. And that was very hard for me, because I came from a relationship that was never spoke up. If something bothered me, I just would take it, because I was afraid of like, well, if I'm going to start a fight, I'm going to like this. And now I'm with someone that it's like, okay, this might start an argument, but the argument will always end in a clear communication of like, I love you, you love me. We're not agreeing on this, but that's okay. Let's move on to the next thing. It's fine.
Yeah.
But that took a while for my brain to understand, like, hey, if you're not happy about something, you're totally allowed to talk about it.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking to a recovering chronic people pleaser.
Oh,
So
God.
yes, that lesson was, like, I'm not happy with that.
Yeah. Let me just, yeah.
Oh, it's okay. Oh, look at that. Everything's fine. Okay. Yeah.
And we really based our relationship on the 4 agreements, and like that was how we started. So every time there was an issue and I brought it up, it was always meant with like, okay, let's figure it out. Not all the time, because we're human beings. And that's why I asked you, when you become defensive on certain things that your partner is asking for or looking for in the relationship, how do you not become defensive? Do you think that defensiveness comes from you and whatever you're battling, rather than your partner and what they're asking for?
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing up.
We got into like the marriage, but kind of
no, good. Yeah, this because the number one thing, ego. First of all, I'm a huge fan of the 80-20 rule. I acknowledge that in human behavior, we're going to fail. The goal is to get to 80-20. I mean, if you can succeed in your managing your ego and your self-awareness, and applying coping skills, communication skills, 80% of the time, okay, we're going to fail 20% of the time. That inner child is going to come out. We're going to have an adult temper tantrum. I mean, it's okay. We're going to have moments like that because we're human beings. We're flawed. It's just how we come from the factory.
Yeah.
It's just, that's how we are. If we can achieve 80-20, then we're already okay. I would say the hardest thing to do is whenever I'm trying to start a thing because we've overused the word trigger, so I'm using ignited. So I'm gonna see if it sticks. But whenever someone is ignited, whenever I'm ignited, the first thing to do is check in with yourself. And okay, wait, where am I at? And how am I feeling? How am I feeling about myself? How am I feeling about my life? Like, am I projecting?
That was one of our biggest things when we first started dating, and we felt some type of way. We would ask each other, are you projecting or am I feeling this? Like, what are you really feeling? How I feel like you're feeling, or am I just projecting this feeling on you? And that helped us a lot.
It's amazing because hopefully if it goes well, it puts you in a position where it's okay to be vulnerable and say, okay, here's the thing. I feel devalued when you say these things, or I feel unheard when this happens. And yeah, I was projecting because that's how I feel. And if we can lead with those primary emotions in communication, like not I'm mad, I am sad, I am frustrated, but those primary emotions, like, I feel a little insignificant when you do that. I feel a little unheard when this is happening. I feel, devalued when you correct me. And that's within me. My ego's telling me that I shouldn't be corrected. That's incorrect. I should definitely be corrected if I'm wrong on something, right? But it's coming, and my reaction, the reaction and the intensity of a reaction is usually linked to the resentment that's going on in that relationship, whether it's a business partnership, a friendship, a romantic relationship. The intensity of the reaction is usually aligned with the amount of resentment that's happening. So when I'm working with anybody who's talking about issues with siblings, mom, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, any work, whatever, I always challenge them. I challenge them to say, okay, well, have you communicated? Because there's resentment there. And resentment, it's a little harsh and a little aggressive, but the way we describe it is drinking poison, waiting for the other person to die. Right? It's and we have to be careful with that, because a lot of times we're the ones that are
building that sometimes resentment that wasn't, like, didn't even need to be there in the first place.
Because if you would have communicated earlier on, then that resentment wouldn't exist. It bothers me when you do that. And the thing is, in I mean, I don't know where you're from culturally, but you know, I'm from Chile. I'm from South American.
Okay.
You know, and the way that what I grew up seeing in common day marriages was a lot of internalizing, and it was a lot of like, sad to say, and I'm generalizing here, but sad to say that usually men internalizing their emotion, which makes so then it makes the female look like they're always sharing their emotion. No, it's not that they're always sharing their emotion, is that you don't share any. Right. And if you're not sharing that, then resentment is building. And that's scary. You know?
Yeah, because then resentment becomes anger, it becomes the like the little like digs, the little stuff. When you're reaching to a point, because I feel like you can feel that resentment building for whatever it may be. How do you take a second and say, okay, how do I like wrap this up and like throw it away and not have this resentment? I know communicating is the biggest way, but sometimes your ego is so like I talked about this the other day of like sometimes even saying you're sorry when you know, like, just say it. Just say you're sorry.
I know.
Like, you know, he deserves it or she deserves it. Just say the sorry and you can move on. But sometimes the ego is so like, for what am I gonna say sorry for? I didn't do this and you did this and you did this last time, and that resentment comes up. How do we, and I'm gonna put myself in that situation, how do we take a step back and say like, okay, let's communicate and let's take a step and not resent something that should, like you said, shouldn't even have been there in the first place.
Yeah. So again, very blown away by the questions. This is great. I think in relationships, and again, interpersonal relationships, where we don't have to be talking about romantic relationships the whole time, just interpersonal relationships. I think that where the ego plays a really, really bad part is sometimes my ego so strong that I don't want to fail at this relationship or friendship or this business partnership. So I'm going to save it by not saying anything. And I think that's where we get trapped a lot. Now, why? Fear of loss.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're a person who has gone through a loss or has gone through abandonment or anything that's involved any type of loss or disconnect with somebody, a loss of a person, you know, not necessarily to death, obviously, but just, you know, a relationship ending. When that fear is there, yeah, we're going to hold back. Always. I believe that it's the fear of, I don't want to lose. And what does it say about me if I lose this friendship? And that's a big fear. Like in friend groups, you know, if I stop being friends with this person, does that mean I lose the entire friend group?
Yeah.
So should I just keep tolerating or not tolerating? Sorry, internalizing my feelings towards this person in order to salvage all of this? So that happens a lot. For example, friend groups, work groups. So there's when all we need to do, and I say it like it's easy, I realize how difficult it is, but what needs to be done in reality, if we were emotional robots, like robots that understood emotion but function like robots, ideally each time we would say, I fill in the blank right now. I mean, and why? Let's discuss it. And then the resentment won't build. But you got to do it along the way, you know, because if not, you end up turning into some kind of like invoice factory where you're just like, oh yeah, like that one time, you know, 7 years ago when you said this, and it's like, wait a minute, like, okay.
But why didn't you say that 7 years ago when I said that? Yeah,
you know,
I
so
get that.
why don't we start saying things now? Why don't we just like, you know, and yeah, so there's a lot there. The ego influences like, oh, but I don't want to, if I say this, she might break up with me. And then, oh my gosh, I don't want that to happen right now, or, you know, yeah. So,
wow. I kind of want to, since we're talking about couples now, I kind of want to touch a little bit on being someone who's, I hate saying struggles with mental health. I'm trying to figure out a different way to like navigating through mental health.
Sure.
Ooh, I like that.
Absolutely.
Someone who is navigating through mental health and has a partner who like has dealt with maybe some type of anxiety attacks or like episodes, but is not really someone who deals with it as much as I do. What advice do you have for couples who one is dealing with mental health and the other one is supporting them through this like journey?
So if they're in front of me, and I've done sessions where it's been business partners. And
Yeah.
I've done sessions where it's been friends. Like it's not always a romantic relationship. And those are fascinating because
Right.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, aside from the fact that you're not having sex with each other, I mean, for the most part, it's a lot of the dynamics are very similar.
Oh, my fiance has business partners, and I tell him all the time, your business partner is practically who you're marrying. Like you're the only thing you're missing is to be in bed with them. That's literally the only thing you're missing.
When I'm performing with the first band that I was in, that I'm still in, I'm sorry. I always take a moment in the show to say, well, this is the longest relationship I've ever been in, you know? So, but
I love that.
yeah.
I love that.
I don't know how my drummer feels about that though. He's
Every
always
time he's probably like, okay, stop.
Yeah. He's like, hey, that's a good joke that you've been using for 8 years. So it's if they're in front of me, I'd say that it's very difficult to understand that how pain is relative and how everyone's pain and suffering or struggle is real. And we really struggle with a lot of relative terms, right? Like normal. What's a normal doesn't mean anything. What's normal to me can be very different to what's normal to you. I mean, you know, that's why, you know, perfection, being perfect or something that's perfect is a fallacy because it's subjective. You know, it's not something, you know, that's perfect. Like us, if you say so. You know, like, yeah.
Wow.
So pain also, like, okay. Because we've become so hyper aware in mental health that there's little like mental health competitions that happen in friendships and relationships where this is my trauma. Oh yeah, I understand because I went through this. It's almost like, you know, almost like in the probably like 15 years ago, or it still happens, but there was a time where it was a battle of who's more stressed, right? I'm more stressed. No, I know you're stressed, but this is the stress I'm dealing with.
Right.
And so like, there's a little like these little micro kind of like demographics and in the mental health, like hyper awareness that we're in now, which I do think is great, but it does have repercussions just like anything else.
Of course.
And we do have that kind of like, oh, well, you think that's bad. You should have seen what I went through. Okay. The pain is pain. You know, the struggle is still a struggle to that relative to that person.
Yeah.
So I always have to work with the supportive cast, if you will, the person who's supporting the person who maybe has, let's go with anxiety. Okay.
Right.
And, you know, I tell this person, I go, you know, you might not understand it, but I'll try and explain it. Just imagine most moments of your life, you are 100% sure that something really bad is going to happen, except you don't know when, you don't know how, and you don't know in what way. It could be 5 seconds from now. And usually they'll go, oh, that made me anxious. I'm like, exactly. Yeah. Like I just said that in 5 seconds, something can happen.
Yeah.
And okay, imagine that constantly happening, you know? And then of course I get the good old, okay, but what do we do about but is there a way like out? Is there a way to, yes, there's a way, of course. And that's going to be up to said person to work on that and to work on their fears and, you know, reframing and all the things that we work on, especially with cognitive behavioral therapy, right? We give language to the thought. We don't control the thoughts that come into our head. So all we can do is negotiate with the thought. It's the best we can do. You know, our subconscious is always on. It's always running. These, what we call intrusive thoughts, are going to pop up. All right. And most people will just react to that thought. And it can be completely irrational, but they'll react to that. They'll lean into that thought. So I always, in my sessions, we have to become the main character of our thought process. So you have the thought, and it's our responsibility. It sounds like it takes a long time, but it's milliseconds in your brain. And you have to say, wait a minute, but why would I believe that? You know, and I love having the conversation of self-talk because, and I did a reel on it, and it was actually well received because I'm very bro-ish with myself. Oh. And I'm always like, bro, why would you think that? Like, seriously, like, what are the odds of that happening? Dude, come on. Like, no, we're not doing that right now.
I've learned to do that with myself of like, Marcela, please.
Yeah.
Like really, really, girl? That's what we're thinking. Let's move it on.
It's a beautiful process.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you hear like a clinician saying self-talk and you think, okay, I have to, you know, think like that, say this. And no, it's just, how would you talk to your best friend if they were going through this? So helping that person understand what anxiety is and that the pain is real. Just because it's something ridiculous to you, well, it's not about you. And if we're talking about the collaborating into the person's life, then if we're functioning off of being collaborative, then technically it doesn't matter what you think about it.
Yeah.
You know, all that matters is how open and willing you are to learn about it so you can be in a better position to support. I wouldn't even say help.
Right.
Because the person needs to help themselves.
Yeah.
It's
not about fixing the problem. You're not a fixer. It's not about, oh, I just want to help. Hey, it's just about, you know how you can help when the anxiety really hits, you not ask, but what, or you ask all the questions, or you trying to figure out how you can fix the problem right then and there. It's just like, if I want to talk about it, let me talk about it. If we want to just go into the motion of it, let us go into the motion of it, and we'll ask for what we need at those like moments. But I think what sometimes happens is that you are with people who love you so much that they want to take this negative thing away. And sometimes that adds to like the pressure I feel of like, because now you know that I'm dealing with this. Now you want this to be taken away as much as I want it. And sometimes there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah. But where it gets very difficult though, and the unpopular narrative, I guess, is when I have to look at the person with anxiety and say, but are you trying? Because that's not fair to the other person.
Right.
Because they're not here. They're here to collaborate and all the things we talk about, but that's not fair to that their role becomes to be the constant support because of the support you're receiving, you don't find it necessary to apply the things to make you better.
Ooh.
And that's not fair to the other person.
Yeah.
Because now you have the comfort. I can be as anxious as I want because this person's going to support me. And that now we're off balance because now you're messing with this person's life and you're not collaborating to this person's life. Now you're making it all about you, you know?
Wow.
And people fall in love with their pathology. People love dancing with their pathology. Oh my gosh. I've had people say, Carlos, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful journey. I don't feel anxious anymore. I'm going to take a break. And I go, absolutely. Sign off on it. Absolutely. Let's go. And they'll come back 2 months later. I'm anxious because I'm not anxious anymore. So people fall in love with their pathology all the time. They dance with their pathology all the time. It becomes part of their identity.
Yeah.
My anxiety made me successful. My fear of failure made me successful. No, the actual thought and energy and physicality that you put into something could have been done with or without the anxiety. But you identify with that now. So that now the issue becomes, okay, don't take the anxiety away from me because who am I without it?
Wow.
And so what happens is you're with somebody who's constantly supporting. So then things get very interesting because you have to, we're calling them the supporting cast.
Yeah.
Now we have to educate the supporting cast on how to communicate those feelings where, you know, I'm feeling discouraged. I'm feeling discouraged because this week you've been here, you felt this yesterday, you reacted to this way the other day and made me feel bad. And you always turn it around to your anxiety. And now I feel I don't have a space to share how I feel and how my daily living looks like and feels like. And I feel like there's no space for me in this relationship emotionally. And giving that person the tools to communicate that and to do some gentle confrontation of like, let me ask you, let me check in with you. You're going to therapy. You're aware of your anxiety. Are you working on it? I'm not accusing you of not working on it.
Right.
I'm just asking if you feel you're giving it an honest effort, because the way I'm feeling and what I'm seeing, it just doesn't feel that way. And that is tough.
That is tough.
Because people who fall in love with their pathology, and depending on how deep it goes, because if you let a certain pathology go on long enough, it could turn into other things like borderline personality disorder. You know, it could turn into creating narcissistic tendencies, right? Manipulation, you know, and it could, and here's the craziest part is that people don't do that maliciously.
Right.
It's you let anything go on long enough, it's going to turn into something within you intrinsically don't even realize it's happening. And you're becoming this person, potentially. So now, you know, if the supporting cast says, I feel anxious today. Wait, what? No, no, hold on. I'm the one that needs to, you know, like.
And I'm going to throw myself under the bus. But, you know, we talk.
Really?
We talk real shit here. But I have been guilty of like, not that I don't sympathize when he tells me, oh, I'm feeling guilty today. I'm feeling anxious or whatever. But my brain goes, which is horrible, but my brain goes into like, okay, welcome to my life. Like, I've been feeling anxious for the past, I don't know how many years. Like, this is what I wake up with every day. And there's days that my brain doesn't go there, but there's sometimes that's what my brain thinks of, just like, congratulations. I don't know. Like, how do you want me to, like, what do you want me to tell you? Which I don't think it's fair. It's not fair at all, because then I'm like, okay, so when I'm feeling anxious, he gives me all the support that I need. But when he's feeling anxious, I think like, oh yeah, welcome to the party. Like, and
oh my gosh,
it's horrible.
Well,
and again,
we've all experienced it, because one of the isms that we're not talking about enough is ageism. You know, and ageism is very alive and real, and in both directions. And one of the ways that we experience that is you're living your life, you're 15 years old, and your parents are working hard and they're super stressed, and you go through a breakup and you're sad, and your parents go, really? That's what you're stressed about?
Yeah.
Okay, no, you don't know stress until you get to our age. Okay, that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like for the supporting cast to have a bad day, and the person goes, yeah, live in my world for a day.
Yeah.
You know, it's fascinating. It happens all the time. And here's the thing. None of it's done maliciously. I have to constantly remind people, we're not waking up I said it earlier, and I'm aware I'm saying it again. We're not waking up in the morning saying, how can I make this person feel bad?
I have that thought, and I literally, in my head, I'm like, Marcela, like, are you serious? He literally just told you how anxious and like stressed out he's feeling, and the first thought was like, welcome to the party. Like, I've been anxious, like, and I hate, and there's times that I'm able to like talk myself out of it, and I'm just like, and then I'll present myself. I'm like, what do you need from me at this moment? And then there's times that I do ask still, like, what do you need with, like, you know how you have like the little devil and the little angel, and the little devil's like, I cannot believe that he is telling you that he feels anxious today. Like, wow, that's what he's telling. And I'm like, but devil, he's allowed to tell me like that he is not having a good day or that he needs a little more support than like normal.
Right.
And telling my brain like just because someone else is feeling anxious doesn't take away from your feeling anxious, nor do you need to like welcome them into the club. Like it's okay. Just like acknowledge what he needs at that moment.
Yeah.
And keep it moving.
And in this scenario, also just like a double whammy, like on top of that, just to layer it a little bit, the whole thing with men's mental health, right? And so that's the message we're used to getting, right? This whole like jokingly, I call it the dating epidemic. Yeah, because I mean I have a lot of patients who are dating, and yeah, the funny stories and not so funny stories.
Yeah.
But there's a lot happening with, that those messages that boys and men get growing up where, I'm sad. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, the whole man up thing, right? Man up, or, so so you have an opportunity there to encourage the sharing of emotion, right? Saying, okay, good. Yeah. I'm glad you're sharing this with me, and you're going to mess up, you're going to say, like I've had to apologize to younger patients because they've said something that stresses them out, and in my head I'm going, oh, they're going like, but their pain is real. No, Carlos, no, this isn't about your story and the struggle you went through. This is their struggle right now. So, that whole helping them, like encouraging men to, to share emotion at the same time. Like, well, oh, he's sharing. Okay, good.
Right.
This is good. You need to keep doing that. I need to know what's going on in your head.
How do you support someone when sometimes you feel like you can't even support, like your brain is too much, either the anxiety is too high or the depression is on another level or the OCD, whatever it is that you're dealing with is so high that you feel like you can't help yourself and your partner needs the help also, which sometimes that's how life is. Sometimes you're not at 100 and they're not at 100 and you have to meet each other where you're at. But how do you not lose yourself in making sure that you're helping someone else? Or how do you not make sure that you're not taking a hit mentally to make sure that you're present for that person?
Well, communicating all of that. It's really amazing how many times in a week somebody will be saying, like this conversation just now, and I'll say, you should probably just say that. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to help you. I want to help you. I love you. I want the best for you. All I know is that, you're my world. You're my everything. I want you to be happy. I don't know how to help you at this moment. Because I don't know if I am myself in a mental or emotional space where I'm able to help you effectively. But I'm here.
Yeah.
My intention is that I want to help you, and I don't want you to be going through what you're going through. I just don't know if I'm able to help right now. But anything that I can do, validation, just being physically next to you, anything, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And that's completely fine because it sounds cold, but it's not our job to save the other person.
Well, I agree, and I don't mean to say that in a bad way, but I do agree with that. It's not just like it's not his job to fix my problems or fix my issue. It's our job together to make us stronger so that we can hit those issues head on ourselves and fix our issues ourselves. I kind of want to talk about divorce a little bit. I come from divorced parents.
Okay.
My mom and my dad got divorced when they were very young. My mom's a single mom. I didn't grow up with my dad. What do you see? And I know this is such a large question, but what's the main thing you see in the divorces that you see that are happening? What's the biggest issue that sometimes a lot of these divorces have? other than I think like communication gets lost and collaboration gets lost, but I feel like
we're gonna have to do a part 2 of this. I'm just kidding. What I say, it's sad. It's sad because when people, a lot of times, when people reach a point where they want a divorce, it's what makes it sad is that what you see from the therapist chair is two people who want the same thing, but they have their backs turned to one another.
They become each other's enemy.
Yeah, or maybe not enemy, but they're too caught in themselves.
Like the ego of it.
Right. I don't receive this. I don't get enough of that. I don't understand this. It's just like I stopped doing it a couple years ago, but the five love languages exercise.
Oh, we used to.
People would come back and say, I am acts of service. Okay, so what do we do with that? I wait for my acts of service. Let's go. I'm ready to receive. It's like, no. You missed the point of the exercise is that you got to learn the ones that you are not. Like that's you. Yeah, you're good at receiving gifts. Congratulations. But your significant other is physical touch.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I've never been an affectionate person. Well, you better become one.
Yeah.
If you're going to be married, I mean, if you were single, then that's okay. But if you married somebody, I mean,
and that's their.
You could learn how to, cariñito. Oh, sorry, I threw in Spanish there.
No,
Every
we
once in a while, like,
love it here. Give us some
like,
Spanglish.
Yeah, so but it's everything we've talked about. So kind of like I like the question because it kind of bundles everything we've talked about to this point where. It's the lack of collaboration. It's the lack of interest in each other's needs and wants. It is just not too much of I need this, instead of what am I giving? What are we having the conversation of what do you require so I can focus on giving you that? And without creating codependency, which is it's not hard to do. Maybe when we talk about it in like a format of a podcast, it sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's really just saying, there was this, I forget his name, but there was this author that he wrote a lot of books on sales.
Okay.
And he was like a sales guru. And he had a quote that said, if you give people enough of what they want, you will get what you want. And that describes the being in that collaborative effort and being collaborative towards someone's life.
Right.
Right. I have faith, and that's the risk we take in any relationship. I have faith that I will receive if I give enough of myself. And the ego says, no, hold, no. You will receive, and depending on how much you receive and how happy you are is how you will reciprocate. And no, you got to go with that blind faith that if I learn enough about this person and I work not solely, obviously we focus on ourselves and self-care and all that, but as far as our role in a relationship or a friendship or whatever, I am going to provide this person. If this person is words of affirmation, I'm going to give them words of affirmation. And I'm going to keep doing it. And I think that hopefully that'll put them in a position to want to reciprocate. And they might not.
Right.
And that's just the innate risk that we take in every relationship. It's always a risk. It's never not a risk. So with divorce, it's people that have experienced a lack of that multiplied by years. And then a lot of these people, they haven't had sex in a long time. People who haven't been married and they haven't had sex in 2 years. And that builds another layer of resentment.
Right.
And they come in sometimes in pretty bad shape.
Wow.
And that's there are some where I'm like, I've never said this in my entire career, but there are and have been certain situations where I've come close to say, okay, guys, call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you
Wrap
want
it up.
Yeah, like you want I have some attorneys' phone numbers.
Yeah.
Like, but some people come, in pretty bad shape. And it's just a lot of that, a lot of resentment, a lot of cotton self. And it's sad because they both want the same thing. Their concept of what they want in a marriage is the same. And that's what makes it painful.
Yeah,
Like,
because it's the ego that.
yeah. And like they'll leave a session and I'll just, it will hurt. Like I will feel, I'll be like, that's so incredible. Two people that want the same thing and they just can't turn around and just face each other.
Oof. That's hard because it becomes an ego thing. It becomes a she's wrong, I'm right, he's wrong, I'm right type of thing. And it becomes a match. Like who's gonna win this? Like who is the therapist gonna agree with today? Who are they gonna be like, well, you're wrong. That was kind of right what he said. Like it becomes this whole game when in reality it doesn't have to get there if again we're gonna go back to the communication of it all. And I'm gonna talk about my relationship a lot because that's where I'm at, but I can tell the difference when we're clear in communication and we're both on the same communication like train, or when our egos kind of get in the way of what we're trying to communicate. So instead of communicating with collaboration in mind, I'm communicating with ego in mind. And I can see the difference in that. And I feel like I was in my own therapy session today. Thank you so much for giving me all these and Junior, you were writing stuff down? You're writing tips down? Okay, now that we talked about couples, I want to wrap up with a little more of you before we end the podcast. And you talked about your bands.
Yes.
I want to hear a little more about, first, what's your favorite cover song to sing?
Always All Right by the Alabama Shakes.
Ooh, I don't know that one, so I'm going to listen to it.
Yes, please do. It's great. And the way we do it with the horns and everything, it's, it's an 8-piece band. So there's a lot going on and it's so good. Yeah.
How did you get involved with this band?
So Sunset Dreams is the original band that I was always in. That was straight covers.
Okay.
Party band. We've been at it since 2007. We love what we do. We love how we do it. Lincoln's Beard actually is, they're having us there this Friday as they're going to start selling liquor actually. So on Friday, so we're helping them celebrate. And all that.
That's awesome.
And we're the band that's going to be performing. So we have a great time. However, the guys in the band, their lives started developing. They became dads. They got married and not in that order, but they and they had to slow down, and I was the first one to have kids. My kids are, they're 17 and 16. So, and my oldest son plays in bands and travels across Florida performing every weekend.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So my kids, I'm like, oh, yeah, you think I'm away too much with all these shows I'm playing? And they're like, what? They're like, no, you're fine. Keep playing your shows. So I wanted to keep going. These guys needed to slow down and I wanted to keep going. So I ended up meeting these amazing musicians. And it was originally Jorge, Orion, Scott, and myself. Scott on guitar, Jorge on the upright bass, Orion on drums, and me on the acoustic guitar and singing. And we navigated through 9 years. I mean, from 2016 to 23, whatever the math is on that. And then I'm playing at Strange Beast.
Okay.
I'm performing and singing my heart out. And there's this lady that's just staring. She's like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing. And she's like, hey, my name's Ale. And you said you were from Chile. I'm from Peru. And I've been in Miami X amount of time. And I play the trumpet. And I was like, what? I was like, okay, you want to play with us next time? And she's like, do you want to try me out? I was like, if you are able to approach the musician that just played and you saw what we're performing, unless you have like severe talent dysmorphia, I assume that you're really good.
Talented dysmorphia. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use that. There's a lot.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. I'm not putting anyone down. All my fellow Miami music
we're not
scene
putting you
people,
guys
I
down.
love you.
Creatives are creatives.
Yeah.
But a lot of you out there.
But it's not about lack of talent. It's about the attitude, delivery. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
But so I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay. So she played the next show with us, and I was like, and I am a horns fanatic historically. I mean, bands like old bands that my dad would listen to, like Chicago, and then I guess later another old band like Dave Matthews Band, and and anything horns, anything old R&B, old Motown, anything with horns. I was always like, what's the term, frisson? That reaction you get when you hear an instrument and you just So I was like, I performed with her, and I was like, that is insane. And then we have a sax player in Sunset Dreams, and he's like, hey man, he's like, can I perform with you guys? And I was like, sure. And we played at Magic 13. It was our first time playing there, and second time playing with Ale. Adam shows up, and I go, Adam, this is Ale. Ale, this is Adam. You guys are the horn section tonight. Do what horn sections do. And they were like, okay. And I hired a videographer that night, which I thought was going to do what most videographers do: stay there for like 45 minutes, take good video, and then edit it later, provide me with a reel or something. No, this guy set up a studio right at Magic 13. Like, first time playing there, the owners are like,
what is happening?
And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I'm sorry. And our first show, we were 6 at the time. Yeah, 6. Is the whole show's recorded. It's on YouTube. And when people watch that, people are like, dude, like, you guys, how often do you guys rehearse? I'm like, that was our first show, all of us together.
Wow.
And then Ale in January brought in Amy, and Amy's our co-vocalist now, and she's amazing. And then the drummer and I were watching the Farm Boys, great local band, and they invited up a trombone player, and I was like, oh my gosh. And we like cornered him. It was super awkward, in the most awkward way possible. We're like, hey, we're in this band. Oh, by the way, my name's Carlos. And, you don't know who I am, but you need to join us. And so he did. And so the ongoing joke that Sam has a dark sense of humor. And he's like, it's funny because these guys kidnapped me, and now I have the Stockholm. That's his thing that he says. Yeah, so now we're 8. So we have trombone, trumpet, and saxophone, and all the other members, and it's great. We've released. We're gonna go on our 3rd single November 14th.
Wow.
We released a Fine Line in August, which is like a funk soul song, something that resembles almost like Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Nice.
Driving was released last month, and that's more like a almost country meets alternative kind of vibe. And then we have Letting Go that's coming out November 14th, and we played Lagniappe I was telling the guys earlier when I got here, we played Lagniappe on Friday, and to us, that closes out like the circuit. Like we've been playing and continue to play pretty much every live venue in Miami for the most part.
That's amazing.
At this point. Yeah. So it's, it's going strong. I should have brought t-shirts. I'll bring you guys t-shirts next time.
We got to go watch you.
Oh, please. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great time. So yeah, it's really nice to be at a stage in life where you've done the things you've wanted to do. My kids are good kids. They're everything, is good. And I can just do this without any pressure of making it or jumping on a tour bus for 8 months out of the year. Like, just doing it, and whatever happens. I just found out that my very dear and good friend Orlando Mendez was involved with your organization.
He just had a show last week, Junior, right? Or 2 weeks last week, or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I couldn't go. But
we went to go see it. He was amazing. We did a show together. I did Amparo with him.
Oh, you were.
I was in Amparo.
What?
Yes, I was Margarita
gosh.
Maria Mendoza, the club singer.
Oh my! I remember. I have a friend of mine. He does all our branding and all our cover art. David Verjano.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know David.
Okay. Yeah. So he would post about that when that was happening. He would post about that a lot. I remember. Wow. That's great. I love that.
That's how me and my fiance met. That's how I met Robbie. Was through that show. A lot of the show changed my life in so many ways. And every time it's funny because I was at Steven's Deli on Saturday and Sunday, and someone comes up to me, they're like, "You're the actress from Amparo?" And I was First of all, so embarrassed because I was in a onesie.
Oh my gosh.
Eddie, we had a onesie party the night before, and he's like, "Would you want to go to breakfast in your onesie?" And I'm like, you know what? You only live once. Like, let's do it. And of course, the day that I'm in a Sally from the Nightmare Before Christmas onesie, someone comes up to me and was like, "You're the actress from Amparo." And I'm like, yes, I am.
Yeah, wearing a onesie.
But yeah, I love Orlando. So talented.
Oh, I met him. I mean, in 2020, I was playing at Boogie's. It was, middle of pandemic. They had me outside, and we had become friends, and we've been dear friends ever since. I mean, he's a very, very close dear friend of mine, and and I was like, "Do you want to come up and sing a song?" He's like, "Yeah." Now every time he's in town, he invites me up for a song. And, and we did the writers round not too long ago together here, and yeah, so it's really cool that I failed to make that connection because I was following that intimate show that he did. I was following it, but I didn't realize it was connected to all of you. So now that I know that, that's awesome. I love how we're all connected. And as somebody who came up in a scene that was not very warm, to see this is it's so beautiful.
I tell them the first day I walked in here, it's this energy that I've never felt from anywhere before. It's this invitingness of like, you're a creative, I'm a creative, we're all creatives. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
If you're winning, I'm winning. If I'm winning, you're winning. It really is. It's funny. We're going to go back to it. It goes back to collaboration.
Absolutely.
And from the moment you walk in here, it's a collaboration.
Yeah.
It's a collaboration, and it's let me hear what you have. Let me hear what you want to do. It really is something different. And not because I do my podcast here, but I said it from the first day of like, there's a different energy, and this is going to go somewhere so cool. And like, even hearing you talk, I'm like, now you're part of the family, you know what I mean? And
thank you. That's amazing.
But it really is. And we're lucky. It's a male heavy company. So, when we have little females in here, we got to represent, but they're amazing.
2 females in my band, and they are, they're my sisters.
Yeah.
They're amazing. They're beautiful.
I tell my mom, because I've been wanting to do this podcast for a really long time, and I'm like, it happened when it happened, and it happened with the people who see your light when sometimes you don't see it. And it's really cool. And sometimes you walk in here and you're not feeling it, and they lift you up in a way that is just great. So
you have to lift each other up. You have to gas each other up, because there's already enough negativity out there. There's already enough. We have enough of that. And then that's the thing. I mean, that's the scene I grew up in. So it's nice to see. Because it's nothing wrong with gassing each other up and lifting each other up. There's nothing wrong with that, because you're not lying to anybody. You're not being disingenuous. You're
right.
And there's enough of the negativity out there. So support one another. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
support
beautiful.
one another. And it's become less of a competition. I think growing up, it was this very like me against you type thing, especially in like the acting world and the theater world. It was like, I can't be nice to you because we're up for the same thing. And it's like, if you get it, it's because it was yours. And I'm here to support you. If I get it, it's because it was mine.
Yeah.
And I hope you're here to support me.
And none of it was ever up to you.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like you're competing over someone's going to make a decision that you have no control over, but yet you're competing.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's like, okay, let's just do our best and let's encourage each other, and whoever is going to get it is going to get it.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. That's good. Miami is it's a very, very cool scene right now in all aspects.
Yeah,
in all
I agree.
of the, and it's just, it's so beautiful, because I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon as far as like living somewhere else. So I'm here, always been here, love it here.
Oh, I'm born and raised in Miami. Like a Miami girl. I love California, but there's no place like Miami.
Yeah. Where'd you go to high school?
Mater Academy.
Mater Academy. Nice.
I went to Twin Lakes Elementary.
Okay.
St. John's the Apostle.
Ooh.
A Catholic school girl. Then I went to Mater Academy, and then I went to New World School of the Arts.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Good for you.
Thank
I love
you.
what you're doing here. This is great.
Thank you. No, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for being here, for sharing your story and for sharing your wisdom with all of us. And I hope this episode, people who need to hear it, and it just opens up your mind into collaboration and connection and communication and all those things that we talked about.
Yes, I hope so. That'd be great.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right.